Pensacola, Florida, Escambia County. This is Jibril Suleiman, the host of the and this is the Pensacola Perspective show. What is the Pensacola Perspective? You know, if you know before, you know how I start off explaining what the Pensacola Perspective is. Well, we're a web streamed live to YouTube. And the point of it, and it seems like I do that every time. YouTube video show playing here. What is the Pensacola Perspective? You know, if you've watched this show before. Hold on for me 1 second. There we go. I've done that before. I'm having some deja vu. Explaining what the Pensacola Perspective is. And we're a web show. We need to shut that one off. Well, it's live.
Live TV.
It seems like I do that every time that I want to watch myself or I leave the YouTube stream up. But anyway, let's get back to it. The Pensacola Perspective is basically a platform for individuals that allow them to exhibit and display their interest, their initiatives, whether social, political, or so forth. We want to be able to be a sounding board for you individuals. So periodically, I haven't been doing it as much as, but periodically I bring an individual on that strikes me that I find through social media. And today, Mr. James, and you want to pronounce your last name, sir, because I don't want to mess it up.
Scaminaci.
Scaminaci. You know what? If I was really a researcher like I should be, a researcher like you are, I would have, already pronounced your name. But that's fine. Mr. Scaminaci III from CJ's Street Report. What struck me about James was some of his hard-hitting and stat-filled articles in his blog site. James, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Jibril. Happy to be here.
Yes, I am happy to have you. What is the purpose of what is CJ's Street Report, and what is its purpose?
The purpose of the CJ Street Report is to give people a voice who have been silenced and forgotten, either by the Escambia County Sheriff's Office or forgotten by the community. And it's to get their story into the public domain, to remind people of the depth of the pain in the community, and hopefully to provide to activists who are involved in reading the blog material from which they can do further mobilizations.
So how long have you been a blogger writing about, is it something that you've started recently? Just give me a little bit of background about yourself.
Well, I have a PhD from Stanford University in sociology. Got that in 1987. I was a senior civilian intelligence analyst with a couple of years in Washington, D.C., and then about 13 years overseas, of which 4 years were in Bosnia, going up against war criminals, mafia folks, terrorists, Al-Qaeda. And the first blog I wrote was politicchili.com. My cousin started it. It focused on the Tea Party movement in Ron Paul. That was destroyed by persons unknown, but probably close to Ron Paul, or at least sympathetic to Ron Paul. And then I just have published draft articles of my book at academia.edu from on the right wing. And then I started CJ Street Report just a couple of weeks ago.
Now, you've mentioned you've brought in some politics into the equation a little bit. You said you've written on the right wing. Is that in favor of the right wing, or more so attacking or exposing the right wing?
Well, I don't attack anybody on the right wing. I don't get into their wing nuts or anything like that. As an intelligence analyst, I try to explain to people, progressive analysts around the country, what their strategy is, how they organize, what their doctrine is, what their tactics are, what are they really trying to accomplish, what kind of warfare are they conducting. So that's the aim of the book.
Wow. Now, it seems like you've really hit the ground running here in Escambia County. Uh, are you an Escambia County native? Or are you familiar with the environment here? Then you really started to really home in on and write these articles. Explain a little bit about that.
Well, I had Facebook friends in Pensacola, and through those Facebook friends, I began to meet people and get invited to something, different events. And the first event I went to was the Candlelight Vigil at the Universalist Church. I met Cindy Martin, I met Haley Morissette, I met Trina Ramos, and that sort of propelled me into the network of the movement. And then I was able to meet some mothers, and the mothers have introduced me to other mothers to tell their stories. And so it's mouth of one mother telling another mother, hey, if you have a story you want to get it told, talk to this guy.
Okay. How long have you actually been in Pensacola then? Because you mentioned an event that it really wasn't too long ago.
I got here March 14th.
Wow. Yes, you were off to a sprint, and you're starting out right in the middle, right at the beginning of the political cycle anyway, the election cycle. Is there any coincidence with that, or is it just for the fact that the information needed to be out there no matter what time period it was?
I think there's probably a correlation. In talking to various activists, they said, I said, I want to help. I want to do anything I can. I have a special skill set that most people don't have. How can I help? And they said, you could write a blog. You can get the stories, put them out there. And that's what I did. And as I was getting the stories, just talking to mothers and talking to activists, the focus really became the Sheriff David Morgan, and his county sheriff's office, because I was very interested from the Black Lives Movement that existed in Oakland.
So Sheriff Morgan, Sheriff Morgan basically has been the topic of conversation that has come up as you've talked to, like you said, activists, mothers, and so forth. And reading in some of the blogs and all that, some of the articles and so forth, you've really broken down some of the I can't say what ways that one could perceive of him, but some of the characteristics that he may hold that's not favorable to the African American community. Can you talk about that, and how did you come about that assumption or conclusion?
Well, it was widespread in the community as I talked to people that they felt the sheriff was personally unattached to the community and cared about the community. But as I talked to mothers, they felt that the department had abandoned them. The office had abandoned them. Of course, these are mothers who lost their sons tragically to gun violence, and they were just forgotten. Now that's not to say every investigator, because some of the investigators had high praise from some people, and I wrote that. I didn't hide that. But generally, they felt the department was unresponsive and didn't care. And I'll give you an example, and this is on tape. Back in May, who was very involved in the community, hosted the Mothers of Pain at a park, and he interviewed all the mothers. They gave their story, how painful it was, and they were asking for people to come forward if they knew who had killed their son. At the end of the day, but I don't know. But he showed up. He spoke. He made some bullet points, how good he was, how involved he was, and then he left. He never once said anything to any of the mothers. Never held them. Never said anything. He just didn't care. He just showed up. It was a public relations stunt, and that's what he did. And that's how he does it. And if you watch any of his videos, he's an egomaniac. Whenever he talks about the department or the office, it's my deputies, it's my council, it's my, and it's like, Sheriff, those cars, those badges, those bullets, everything belongs to the people, the residents of Escambia County. They pay for it. It's not yours. You only hold it in trust. He missed that. He's missed that.
Now, devil's advocate here a little bit. I mean, you're brand new to the city, or to the area, and the first people that you meet are the activists and people that may have a bias because they've gone through a certain situation, or they have certain viewpoints there. Do you feel as though you're biased at all in your writing of the articles against the sheriff? Have you had the opportunity to have some type of dialogue with anyone from the department that may change some of the things that you've maybe have wrote about or the assumptions that you've made?
No, I haven't spoken to the sheriff, and I actually don't intend to speak to the sheriff because it's not about me. It's about the relationship he has with the black community. I am not the interlocutor for the black community. Those words, where are they coming from? What does he really mean when he says these words? And I'm not making stuff up. He's the one that talks about super predators. He's the one that talks about, he brags all, time and time again about young black males are family and community nation. And what he's saying is that young black males are basically godless. They're the product of teenage mothers or single women viewpoint.
Let's talk about that. There was on WCOA, Mr. Rick Allison, he interviewed the sheriff and, of course, provided a recording of that.
Mm-hmm.
One of your articles that you've written centers around that and the fact that Sheriff Morgan speaks of this super predator. Now, when I think of the predator, I think of that draglock having animal that Danny Glover fought how many times?
I don't know, but it's
4 times, 3 times, 3 times, 5 times of the predator,
right.
right. The super predator, which I would imagine the guys that came to help out the original Predator in one of those movies there, that came down on their ships to pull the other Predator away. Not to make light of it, but so that's my image, and I don't know what other people's images are of a super predator, but it seems like, and you've made some associations in the article, as though the mentioning of that has come from expert sources. So just talk about that article a little bit, and the context that you believe that David Morgan was talking about as far as the super predator.
Okay. David Morgan, the sheriff, prefaced his remark about the super predator by, and this is his shtick. If you listen to his videos, he always says, I have 35 years of law enforcement experience, and then he'll come up with scientific data. And so he's just trying to say that this is scientific. And what he did was, it's a good thing my wife, who has a master's degree in criminal justice back in 1991, keeps me up to date with what's going on in the criminology field. And he said this concept was only about 5 or 10 years old. So he buffaloes people. I have friends who are criminologists, very, very critical criminologists. And it turns out that this is a concept that came from neoconservative, right-wing sociologists, about 3 of them, and it was in the mid-1990s. It wasn't 5 or 10 years ago. So he doesn't really know what he's talking about. He just likes to appear that he knows what he's talking about, and originated the term super predator. And this became widespread, talked about young black males being feral, meaning wild, not believing in God, having morals, having no links to the community, and just ready to rob and rape and murder at will because they had no way to control their impulses. And that's where this comes from. So for the sheriff to use that term of art, he knows exactly what it means. And to conjure up the images that you have of a super predator being this beast from a movie is really a racist construct. And I called him out on it because that's what he's using. He's using a code word. He's trying to appear to be scientific when it's nonsense. Every single major criminologist debunked this thing in the mid-1990s 1990s, and one of them said, I thought it was dead. But obviously it's not dead because Sheriff Morgan believes it's true.
Now, you're really digging into the root of some of the things that have been talked about, some of the things that he said. I mean, do you see yourself? You're a journalist, you're a blogger. Do you see yourself as a journalist and reporting these events?
I definitely see myself as a journalist, as a blogger, as an analyst, but I see myself as a journalist. I go out and I interview people. I get sources. I get confidential sources that come to me. And I do my homework.
How has your even being in Bosnia or being in different places like that, how has that influenced your work now and the thoroughness of you checking out your sources or even keeping those sources confidential and even digging for the statistics and the facts behind presenting?
Well, being in Bosnia was a life-changing event for me. Most analysts never go anywhere. They sit in a air-conditioned room where you can't hear anything, and you just sit there and read messages on your computer. I went to Bosnia for 4 years. I interviewed Muslims, Croats, Serbs who had been ethnically cleansed. I interviewed people who had been, their family members had been raped. I interviewed people who were under threat every single night. And it reinforced in me that the purpose there was to protect the weak. We were the strongest power in the country. They were being abused by their own people, whether it was whatever power structure was there. They were being abused by that. We were the only ones who were going to stand up and protect a normal, everyday person who had nothing to do with the war, who just wanted to go back to his home, visit his ancestors' graves. And we just stood up and we fought for that. It was a life-changing experience.
And so just taking that and applying it to what you're doing now, how do you think you have the advantage as far as dealing with journalists that's here that's reporting on the same events and all? What special viewpoint or angle does that give you in reporting what's going on here in Escambia County in regards to the Sheriff's Department?
Well, most journalists in America are basically stenographers. He said, she said, and that's the extent of it. And the reader's left to try to fathom, well, what's really the truth? Like the sun rises in the east, the sun rises in the west. Well, no, it rises someplace in the middle. I come from an intelligence background. We come from the assumption that what people tell us, especially, is not true.
Right.
They're trying to not to. And so that's around where the meanings of words are not necessarily what they are on the surface. You have to understand where these people are coming from.
And briefly, the other day, in regards to just the coded language in general. I mean, can you explain? I'm American. I say when I hear someone say thug, I think that predator.
Yeah.
Somebody dreads and so forth. But it's been blanketed to the point, and I shouldn't even think like that, but I've been so bombarded with that word in a certain context that I can only imagine what everyone else thinks, and I would assume it's going to be pretty close to my description, and that's sad. So explain some of the coded language that's involved with that's involved with some of the speech that's out there in regards to just violence, and then the African American community and so forth.
Well, the history of America is the history of white supremacy. You cannot understand American history without understanding race as being central and foundational to it. So the operating system of America is white supremacy. It always has been. Now, one could be at some point in time up to like the 1950s and 1960s explicit about it. You could openly use the N-word. But the liberation movement of the 1950s and 60s started changing the dynamics. And Republicans made a conscious choice in the late 1950s, but certainly by 1964 with Goldwater, that they were going to appeal to the white supremacists of the South. They were going to openly appeal to the Ku Klux Klan, openly use that language that the Klan used, So they began to develop code words: welfare queen, inner city, culture of poverty, tax cuts, all these things that were reasonable but had disproportionate negative effects on the black community. And so they have honed this over years, and it changes. You know, Paul Ryan, the last time he spoke, he talked about urban communities. Well, you know, Barbara Lee, who was my congresswoman in Oakland, she said, like, he's just being a racist. He's talking about black people. You know, the culture of poverty is talking about black people. Thugs are talking about black people. Predators are talking about black people. But they don't use the language that you'd say, oh, he's a racist. He goes, no, I didn't say that. I didn't use that word. They don't understand the import that you use a coded word that means something very specific to white people. They react to that emotionally, and that's what he's doing.
Wow. You know, that's powerful. You talk about Oakland, and so were there any situations in Oakland, circumstances that kind of formed who you are as a person now? I'm not sure how long you lived in Oakland, but just was it because it is a large African American population there? Is that part of the thing that may have opened your eyes, or talk about that a little bit?
Well, the first thing that nice was the Occupy Wall Street movement, and then we had Occupy Oakland. And I did go to demonstrations for Occupy Oakland. The AFL-CIO was there, the mayor was there, Barbara Lee would speak. So I got involved in that sense. And then it was when Black Lives Matter started, I did go to some marches, but I wasn't like involved. I showed up for the marches. I did what I could, but neutral. You got to pick one side or the other. And I picked my side. And I said, okay, this is the side I'm on. And these are the skill sets I'm going to give to that side, and I'm going to go for this 100%.
Explain the main goal of it. Explain, because this show is about providing solid initiatives. And so when I think of an initiative, I think of something that's going to be able to create solutions there. So what are the solutions that you believe will come about by you writing these articles that slamming whoever? Just explain that.
Okay, I come from an intelligence background, and if you understand the military or even the civilian side, like the CIA side, what to do. You don't tell the general what to do. He takes the intel, and then he formulates his plan and tells you, I need more intel, I need better intel. So I provide information to the activists. It's their ammunition. I'm like the equalizer, but I don't have a gun, I don't have bombs. It's words, it's logic, it's data. And they can use it, simplify it, and use it to mobilize. Okay? Have the solutions, they have the solutions. They have the energy, and that's how set it up and see it.
Well, overall, since you are new here to the area, rate what you perceive as give us a rating of the sheriff's department. You know, maybe even compare it to some of the places you've been to before. But you know, just give me the overall just give me the overall state of the sheriff's department as you see it, especially as someone that's here new.
As many civilians as other forces. But the sheriff ran the Escambia County Jail and was slammed by the Department of Justice for violating constitutional rights, particularly of the black males that were incarcerated. He segregated them, he violated their rights, he didn't provide them with medical treatment, psychological treatment. It's not as violent, but it is more insidious. They abuse the community by neglect. They give the appearance of wanting to solve crimes, and then they forget about them. And then he'll have a meeting, a town hall meeting. He appears for 10 minutes. He talks. He tells mothers that want to talk to him, even though he says he has an open door policy. Get that woman. I had a mother tell me, Miss Lucy Amos, tell me, Sheriff Morgan pointed to her and said, "Get that woman out of here." He doesn't want to talk to these people. He doesn't want to talk to the mothers.
Wow. Well, you know, James, we're wrapping up here. We're coming down to the last few minutes. It seems like you're definitely an expert in what you've been doing. You've been doing it for many years. You've converted that energy of working for the government into working for social causes now, social initiatives and all, especially using your blog as a platform. How can people get in touch with you? Do you have an email address, Facebook page, or go ahead and give out the URL to your blog site as well?
It's all lowercase, CJ Street Report, period, blogspot.com. That's where the articles are. We have a Facebook page on Facebook, CJ Street. Personal Facebook page. You can email me. My email is available on the blog, and it's on the Facebook page. You can messenger me. You can call me. I think I've left my number there. It's area code 510. It's a California number. I'm not going to change it. Too many people call me. It's area code 510-816-3761. If you have a story, you want it told, you think it should be told, get in contact with me.
James, it was a pleasure having you, and you know this. I'm glad that I came across you, especially on social media. That's where I find a lot of the people that I've interviewed in the past, and hopefully, guys, I want to give you the same sentiments that James just passed along. Hey, you know, we are looking for stories. We are looking to provide a platform as well. The Pensacola Perspective, this is what we're all about, is actually providing that substance, something that you can watch on social media and that could be shared and passed along to other individuals so everyone can be informed about what's going on here in Escambia County. So James, pleasure having you on the show. I hope that many people reach out to you because there are definitely people here that want change, that want to have a better place, find with less violence, but at the same time less of the prejudice or the stigma that's involved with being here and living here in Pensacola. So definitely, guys, tune in again for the pop up on you when you at least watch the video if you can't make the live event. And we'll see you guys next time. Facebook, YouTube, social media. Have a good day. Peace.
Thank you, Jibril.
Peace.
Thank you.